and welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marcy Brockman, and I am thrilled that you are here. In this episode, I have a lovely conversation with Anne-Laure Peaucelle. She is a trauma-informed yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, helping people find emotional freedom through creating deep trust in themselves. Her heart's desire is to see all of us accept and embrace our emotions so that we can experience more ease, peace, and freedom in our lives. She believes that our ability to be at peace with the highs and lows is the root of all of our wellness. Yoga embraces all the different parts of who we are, and she helps her clients use a holistic approach to balance body, mind, and soul. Born in France, shaped by yoga and sandy beaches on the east coast of Australia, Anne-Laure followed her heart and crossed another ocean to call Oregon home. After 6 months on the road, she fell in love with Arizona and decided to put some roots down in Flagstaff. She is forever grateful to have found yoga, which keeps her grounded whether she is overwhelmed, heartbroken, or angry, or any other emotion. Why? Because no matter what's going on in her life, yoga is here to meet her wherever she is. And Anne-Laure and I had a lovely conversation. We talked about the introspection of our rich internal dialogues. We talked about how to grow from ruminating on our thoughts to intentional thought processes that help create safety for us within our bodies and our emotional health. We talked about regulating fear and anxiety, and the integral connection between biology and mental health, the whole mind-body connection, and the biochemical connections of emotions. We talked about taking time to figure out what brings us joy and letting go of the belief that there's something wrong with us. We shouldn't be self-deprecating or negative in comparisons with others, and we should be curious, breaking free from societal expectations, continuing our quest of self-questioning to get to know ourselves. And she talks a lot about using yoga for mental health, holistic yoga therapy, lots of different layers of people that she can uncover through using her therapeutic yoga techniques to help teach us how to trust ourselves again and decide and connect with what nourishes us and what resonates with us. So I hope that you listen and enjoy this podcast. You can find her at Anne-Laure at yogawithanlaure.com. You can email her there. You can find her website is yogawithanlaure.com. She's on Instagram and Facebook, Yoga with Anne-Laure. All of the links will be in the show notes for the podcast. So without any further ado, here's Anne-Laure. Welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marcy Brockman, and I am so glad you're here. In this podcast, we engage in meaningful, deeply human conversations using our voices to inspire connection, compassion, understanding, empathy, and wholehearted wellness. I want you to find the courage to transform yourself no matter what others tell you. Only you can give yourself permission to trust yourself, permission to take care of yourself, permission to follow your heart and desires, and build a life of love, home, and belonging. Through sharing our stories, we will help each other to heal and create the healthy, meaningful lives we richly deserve. We only need our own permission to begin. Okay. Welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marcy Brockman. I am thrilled that you're here. Today, I have Anne-Laure Peaucelle. I think I got the name right. She's just fabulous. So welcome.
Well, hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, we've been having some really hot weather here in Arizona, so
yeah,
it's hot.
It's Arizona. Isn't Arizona always hot? I have a feeling my conception of
Well,
Arizona is that it is always warm.
I live in Flagstaff, so we do get some pretty cold winters with some snow. So the summers are hot, but apparently we're having a heat wave right now. It's the first summer that I'm having in Flagstaff, so I have
Oh,
no idea what to expect.
where were you before?
I used to live in Oregon before this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Weren't you originally? No, I'm confused. You're not originally from
Yes. So
Canada, are you?
no, so I grew up in France,
Ah, yes, yes, yes,
and
yes.
then I um, moved to Australia where I lived for almost 10 years, and then I moved to the US about 3, 4 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
Where in France did you live?
So I lived in a town called Angoulême, which is where I grew up. So that's like on the west side of France,
Okay.
near Bordeaux, where the wine region is, if you
Okay.
know that. Yeah. So just north of there.
My son used to date a girl whose family lives outside of Marseille.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Not that I know where anything is, but he the long distance was a little too much for them.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Especially with COVID, no one could
Oh,
go anywhere. It
absolutely.
was a
Yeah.
big mess. Yeah.
hmm
And I have friends in Australia. Where in Australia did you live?
I lived in Newcastle, which is a couple hours north of Sydney on the East Coast.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Nice. You've just been everywhere.
Yeah, I like traveling.
How I mean, I've lived in a variety, I've moved a lot of times in my life,
Mhm.
but I think the largest distance between two places where I've lived is about an 8-hour drive.
Right.
How do you get I didn't how do you get the gumption, the courage, the wanderlust, I guess, to just decide I'm done with this country. I'm going to go live somewhere else.
Well, my first move to Australia, and I had been wanting to go to Australia since I was, I don't know, for as long as I can remember. I've always had this kind of like fascination for Australia.
Hmm.
And when I was at university, I got the opportunity to go there on an exchange program for 6 months. And I just stayed after that.
Really?
I just
Sorry, mom
decided
and
that,
dad, I'm not coming
yeah,
home.
pretty much. I came back to France a little bit for a few months to finish my degree, and then I finished my degree, and I was like, all right, I'm going. So I
Wow.
packed up and yeah, moved over there with no job or anything, but obviously it worked out. So
Obviously, you did not starve to death on the side of the road, so clearly
I
that
did
worked.
not.
Wow. Okay, and then
So
you were at in
yeah.
France for, I mean, in Australia for a while, and then decided, nah, let's try the United States. Oregon looks nice.
Yeah, so I met my husband, and he's from Oregon, so we
Ah,
spent some time together in Australia, and then he was going to college at the time, and so he had to be back in Oregon, and so yeah, we moved back to Oregon.
wow.
And then
Interesting.
Arizona, we went on a road trip for about 6 months, and we just kind of ended up here and decided that we liked it, and so that's kind of how why we ended up here.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so I normally begin before I want to go into your childhood and like figure out who Anne-Laure is and all that, but I like to do the 6 quick questions first.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that goes. So
Yeah.
what 6 words would you use to describe yourself?
Yeah. So the first word that came to mind when I was thinking about this was determined.
Okay.
Um, and then I consider myself to be like calm and grounded as well. Um, and then I had to think about this for a little while. But I think curiosity is also a word that comes to mind, and like, the fact that I love learning things. So lifelong learner is another one. And the last word that came to mind was introspective.
Important.
Hmm.
Are you introspective regularly, often, ongoing, tend to look inward and analyze things?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not really something that I think about. It's just something that happens. I feel like
Sure.
I just tend to like just reflect a lot on, what's going on around me, what's going on within me, and yeah, just kind of reflect on things a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I do that a lot too, but like you said, it's one second. There we go. I'm gonna have to cut that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a tickle. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm quite introspective too, but it's something that's sort of integral to my personality. It's not like I decide at 5:02 on Tuesday I'm going to think about things,
Yes.
it doesn't
Same
happen.
for me. It just
Right.
kind of happens.
You
Yeah.
just get in the little brain spiral and that's the end of that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting because I just thought that's what everyone did, but when I talked
No.
to my husband, for example, he's like, "Wow, like you really like to think, in a lot of depth about like very specific things." And that's when I realized, oh, okay, I guess it's not like just
No.
something that
Like
everyone
I
does.
like you, I was under the impression that everybody had a very rich internal dialogue going on all the time. For
Hmm.
me, even if I'm sitting calm and I'm doing something meditative like drawing or, whatever it is, I
Hmm.
always have a very fast, loud talking dialogue going on.
Mm.
And that's not true about many people. I've actually,
Yeah.
I'm a high school English teacher. And so I
Mhm.
have been for the last couple of years asking my students, okay, so what kinds of things do you say to yourself in your internal dialogue? And the kids look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah,
Some
it's
of them are
interesting.
like us and they do that. And
Hmm.
others are just like, no, it's just quiet up there. What do you mean? Uh,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah, and I think for me, like with being a yoga teacher, I've like cultivated a lot of awareness around what goes on in my mind. So I think that internal dialogue has shifted a little bit from like, kind of like thoughts that were just on repeat to just more, um, I don't know, more like intentional, I guess,
Sure.
thoughts and just like reflection, but without necessarily just like having the
Ruminating.
same thoughts. Yeah, ruminating.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, so that's much healthier. You've grown.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Ruminating is just drives us crazy. Who needs a hamster
Exactly.
wheel? You're
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
hamster. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's get to question number 2. What is your favorite way to spend a day?
um, I'm someone who needs a lot of time for myself, so that's how I like to start my day is to just spend a little bit of time just on my own. So, and, going through like my personal practices that,
Mhm.
include some yoga, meditation, some breathing, some journaling. I like to use some tarot cards as well to kind of
Really?
like, yeah, set up my day and kind of like set an intention for the day. Um, and just like kind of have like a slow start to my day is something that I really value. Um, and that's, I guess I try to like integrate that into my everyday. It doesn't always happen, but it's something that I try to integrate. um Otherwise, I mean, I just really enjoy like being outdoors and like, so either like going hiking or rock climbing or swimming or whatever, outdoor activity we can do. But I also really enjoy like spending time reading and just, I guess, reflecting, I guess,
Sure.
for
Sure.
lack of better words. I don't know. I like some variety, I guess, in how I spend my day. So I don't think I could just like spend my whole day like doing the same thing. I just
No,
like
of course not.
to just do like different things and just have different different things going on, I guess, different projects and things like that. So yeah.
You sound like an interesting woman. What is your favorite childhood memory?
I think it has to be all the times that I spent playing with my sister and my cousin. So my sister's 3 years younger than me, and our cousin she's like right in between us.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had like so many summers, I guess, our summers together, just playing outside and inventing all sorts of stories and
That's lovely.
making up. Yeah, so I think that's probably my favorite childhood memory.
That's lovely. Yeah, I have a
Hmm.
cousin who's about 7 months younger than me, and our moms were like best friends, and we hung out
Hmm.
all the time. And we used to play all sorts of imaginative games and climb this
Hmm.
tree that was in my backyard, and it was like the headquarters, and we were spies, and all sorts
Yes.
of like crazy things, and we'd go as high as we could on the tree just to make our
Hmm.
moms like freak out. And
Yeah. Yeah, my grandparents had a farm, and so that's where we would spend a lot of our summers. And so there was just always, something to explore and some places that we weren't not supposed to go, but we would anyways. And
Of course. Of course. You got to push the
so
boundaries.
exactly.
That's how childhood goes.
Yes.
Okay. What's your favorite meal?
I'm going to be really French on that one, but I just love cheese.
Cheese.
I could just eat that all day long.
What do you have specific kinds of cheese that you like?
Mm, no, just any French cheese, really.
Do you put it on bread? Do you put it on crackers?
Bread,
On a
yeah,
baguette?
some bread, yeah, bread and um, some fruits to go with it, and yeah.
It's heavenly. I love that
Hmm.
too. So, what do you do if you're a French cheese lover, but you're lactose intolerant?
I don't know. I don't know.
You cry,
Uh,
I guess.
yes, I guess.
There's got to be like vegan cheese or something, but I don't know
No,
what.
they are. I don't know if they taste as good.
How could
I'm not
they?
sure. Yes.
How could they? I had some goat
Hmm.
cheese on a salad today, and it was
Oh, nice.
just so yummy.
So good.
Okay, number 5. What's one piece of advice you would like to give your younger self?
Mm, I think just telling myself that it's all gonna be okay, and to just keep going and trust, I guess.
Keep going and trust.
Hmm.
Trust yourself.
Yeah, trust myself. Yeah, yeah, and I guess trust that things are going to work out um, in the best way possible.
Heaven.
Yeah,
I would have liked to known that too. I think
yeah.
when we're younger, especially, we do a ton of worrying about how things are going to work
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that that's really what our early 20s is all about. I see my stepson is 26, and my son is 23, and my daughter is 20, and I
Hmm.
see them all trying to figure out their own path, and
Hmm.
what
Yeah,
gives
yeah.
them meaning, and what brings them joy,
Hmm.
and who their friends are, and who they are, and how to figure
Yeah.
out, it's like everything's a question.
Yes.
And that much liberty is beautiful, but also daunting.
Hmm. Yeah.
Too much freedom is a little overwhelming. So,
Hmm.
um,
It is. Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
take things one at a time, I suppose.
Hmm. Yes.
Okay, last of the 6 quick. What is one thing that you would most like to change about the world?
Hmm. Um, I think I guess for people to truly accept and embrace who they are without um and just to, let go of that belief that there's something wrong with them.
Oh, huge,
Yeah.
huge. I think we all
Yeah.
think that to a degree. If we're not like the
Hmm.
person sitting next to us, or our friend, or
Hmm.
our sister, or whoever,
Yeah.
we do too much of that negative comparison thing.
Hmm.
And we're all wonderful and beautiful and worthy, and there is no such thing as normal. And I think we
Exactly.
all need to
Yeah.
forget all of that stuff.
Yes. And it's definitely something that I need to remind myself all the time as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that society programs us to think that stuff about ourselves so they can
Hmm.
sell us things.
Yes. Yes.
You're not pretty enough. Look at her. You want to look like her, you need this lipstick.
Hmm.
You want to
Yeah.
get the girls like that guy did, you need this sports car, like, I mean,
Hmm.
this is stupid
Yeah.
examples, but I
Yeah. I
think
mean,
that
it's just, yeah,
the
so much
deficit
messaging. Yeah.
mentality just
Hmm.
sells products. If
Oh,
everyone's
yeah,
happy with who
absolutely.
they are, we don't need to buy anything. We're
Yeah.
good.
We're not coming from a place of like needing something else or needing to be different. And I just think there's so much like, messaging around that. Like, you need to change yourself in this way and that way. And I think I've noticed that, especially like since becoming an entrepreneur, is like there's just always like, your business needs this and you need to
Right.
do this differently and you need to be this different person in order to succeed, or whatever the message is. And um, I feel like it just makes us feel like there's, you know, ultimately something wrong with us if we're not, there yet, or if we don't have that thing, or if we don't know how to do this. But yeah, it's just
It
not
just
true.
confuses me because
Yeah.
I'm a lot of the time not sure what it is they're exactly selling.
Mm,
What is it they're trying to convince me that I need?
right.
Why would I need it? How is it going
Hmm.
to help me help
Yeah.
others? Like there's a lot of it that I don't know where the truth is. And
Mm,
I feel like there's an endless stream of things in my inbox that are
hmm.
lying to me. And
Yes.
it just makes me so angry and
Hmm.
aggravated and anxious that if I haven't solicited your
Hmm.
message in my inbox and I don't
Mm,
recognize your name, I delete you.
right. Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't even bother reading them,
Hmm. Yeah, that's a
which
great way
may
to
or
go
may
about
not be the right way to do it. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll miss the next great opportunity. I don't
it.
know, but it's just overwhelming. It's too much
Yeah,
stuff.
it is.
Too much
Yeah.
stuff. Okay,
Hmm.
so you grew up in France. You have
Hmm.
a younger sister. What was
Hmm.
your childhood like?
Um, it was great, honestly. I also have a younger brother, so it was three of us.
Do
I
they
don't
still
know.
live
I
in
just
France?
Yes, they do. Yeah. Hmm.
You're the only one who flew the
Um,
coop.
I did. I am. Yes. Um, I just have really like great, I guess, memories of my childhood and of like growing up, with family and I guess just I don't know. I felt a lot of like support from my parents and always cared for, I guess.
Beautiful.
So I don't know. I had a really great childhood, honestly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
You're
It is
lucky.
really
That's
awesome.
great. Are
Yeah,
you and your
yeah,
siblings close?
yeah. I'm pretty close with my sister. There's a pretty big age difference between my brother and I, and so um, I don't know. I guess like we talk. I just think there's just less like common interests because of the
Okay.
age difference at this point. But yeah, yeah, we're still close for
You
sure.
might catch up in later
Hmm.
decades when you have more
Yeah, because he's
life
still like
experience in common.
he's in his mid 20s at the moment, and so yeah, I think later in life, I think we'll definitely kind of you know get back on the same wavelength for sure. Yeah,
Cool. Cool.
yeah.
So, what did you major in college and university?
So I went to university to study electrical engineering.
And you're a yoga teacher. I got to hear this story.
Yes. Yeah. So that university experience led me to go to Australia to do an exchange program. And I started practicing yoga while I was in Australia. And I guess it's been probably 8, 9 years since I started practicing yoga. And at the time, I was just looking for like a different way to exercise and a different way to move my body. Um, and it just ended up opening the door to just so much more that I just had no idea would even, happen.
Like what
um,
more is there
just like
that it turned you
like the
on to?
spirituality aspect, just it's just think like the reflection, like self-inquiry aspect as well. um it just kind of opened my mind to a different way of looking at things. And I think like at the time, I kind of just had been like going with the flow and doing, following, I guess, the expectations of society.
As we do.
um, as we do. And so I guess yoga made me realize that, oh, it doesn't have to be that way. Like there's just other ways to live,
It allowed you
and
to break free.
yeah, yeah. And so that's kind of starting that self questioning, is what led me to do my first yoga teacher training. And at the time, like when I signed up, I didn't really know whether I wanted to actually be a yoga teacher. For me, it was more of a way to learn more about yoga because I just love learning new things. But by the end of it, I was just sure that that's what I wanted to teach. And so I quit my job and I started teaching yoga.
Wow.
Yeah. So it kind of just it happened pretty quickly. Like after I did my teacher training, I just realized that the job I was doing just was not really aligned with what I wanted, who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do with my life.
That's important to figure out. Luckily, you figured it out pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, so I mean, I had really no idea what I was gonna do or how I was gonna do it, but I just knew that I just couldn't keep doing what I was doing. Um, so yeah, so I started teaching full time, and at this kind of around the same time, started a business, still kind of in the engineering world, but like I wasn't the one actually doing the engineering work.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, mostly teaching um, yoga. And from that point, like I realized that I wanted to focus on yoga for mental health. And so I continued my studies with a yoga therapy training, which yoga therapy is, I guess, all about using all the tools of yoga to work with people, I guess, in a more like holistic way, like work with people one on one or work with people who have like the same, I guess, therapeutic goal. And yeah, so just really like, I guess, looking at the whole person, and all the different layers of who someone is and all the different parts of, you know, what makes up their life and who they are and how they got here, and using the tools of yoga, movement, breath, meditation, all of this yoga philosophy to, I guess, address whatever they wanted to address. But my, I guess, interest and focus was really with mental health and working with trauma, anxiety, depression. And so that's what the yoga therapy training really like helped me go deeper with, to like really learn like, you know, what is it about like trauma and mental health and all of these things, and how yoga can help with all of that.
Well, I've taken yoga classes and at various intervals in my life have
Mhm.
been a regular yoga practitioner, and then I don't really have any explanation why, but suddenly I stop, and then years later I pick it up again, and I don't know what motivates the stopping and the starting necessarily, but and I've been in therapy for most of my adult life. So how do you combine the two? I don't know what that looks like. to me.
Hmm.
So you're
Yeah.
standing and you're doing yoga poses, and are you talking through things, or is the yoga client, for lack of a better word, just thinking about what does it look like?
Yeah, so typically, like for a yoga therapy session, it starts a bit like a regular therapy session, I guess. Like asking a lot of questions about, why they came, what they're hoping to get out of the session, um, and then I guess what their life looks like, taking a holistic picture of what their life is like at the moment. So really looking at all the different things and kind of like connecting the dots
Mm-hmm.
between what they're experiencing and what they want to move towards. Whether it's like a physical thing, whether it's like a mental health thing. And I guess the yoga therapy part is kind of making that connection between mind, body, spirit, or soul, whatever you want to call it, kind of connecting all of this. So I guess the session goes like that, like a lot of questions to start with, so I can get an idea of where they are, you know, what they want. And then it's about trying different things. So it could be movement, it can be breathing practices, it can be meditation, relaxation. It can even be some like reading or just whatever, really.
Combination
uh,
of all of it.
yeah, a combination of all of these things to put together into like a short practice that they can do on their own. And I really believe that like part of why this is important to be like a daily thing is because we, I guess, cultivate that committing to ourselves and committing to doing something for ourselves.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's a big part of mental health and emotional
Absolutely.
health, um, because it gets us to trust ourselves again. And I think that's a big thing about like why like we are constantly sold things to is because we don't trust ourselves, and so we put our trust into something else hoping that it's going to give us the answer that we're looking for. And
Absolutely.
so I think like that daily practice of yoga, and that's my modality, but I don't think it has to be yoga necessarily, but just more a daily practice of something.
Mindfulness, something to allow you to turn
Mhm,
inward, something that allows you to be
exactly.
quiet and get
Yes.
still, and
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and allow you the downtime, the quiet time to
Hmm.
hear the
Yes.
heart, to hear the
Hmm.
inner knowing, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Everybody calls it something
Yeah.
else, but I think the
Exactly.
modality you
Yeah.
choose is kind of
Hmm.
secondary to the intentionality of actually doing
It
that
is.
every day.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yoga encompasses a lot of different things, but really at the end of the day, which is why I think it can reach a lot of people in different ways, because there's just so many like entry points to
Sure.
yoga. It doesn't have to be movement or breath or whatever. It can just be either of these things. So whatever really resonates with the person that's in front of me. Um,
I mean, truthfully, laying on your back with your eyes closed and your hands at
exactly.
your sides is a yoga pose. So.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. There's just a lot of different ways. So yeah, so that's usually like how the session goes. Like we would just try a few different things, see what works, see what doesn't, see what resonates, see what doesn't, and then like it's really like I'm only here to guide them towards what works for them. I'm
Mhm.
not going to be like, this is your prescription of yoga poses for the week. Like it's more a collaborative thing to like come up with a practice that is really going to support them and nourish them. Um, and then as they come back, we can do this weekly or whatever works really.
And
We
refine what
can
resonated with
refine,
them
yeah.
and what works
And I
well with
guess
their bodies, right?
right, yeah. And I mean, with the yoga therapy aspect, there's definitely like a little part of like counseling to it as well. And it's something I learned through my training of, I guess listening, reflecting back to like what is going on and helping making the connection between different things that may be happening in their lives and kind of connecting it all together and connecting the dots so that they, I guess, have their own, knowing and their own, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, realizations about, what they need and how to move forward. So yeah,
A
that's
lot
how
of
that
times, what
goes.
I realize when I'm doing yoga is that my body isn't as young as it used to be.
Yeah.
I've discovered that I am hyper flexible.
Oh,
My
yeah.
I do massage therapy and
Okay.
acupuncture every Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always remarking on how
Mm.
my
Bendy.
joints and my limbs are very bendy, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I find like my hips are tight, my psoas muscles
Yeah.
always like inflamed,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Yeah.
just makes everything unhappy. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
I also broke my ankle, so I'm walking around in an air cast. So
Yes. That
everything
just
is just
creates the whole,
at
yeah.
odd angles with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
It's driving me
Yeah.
insane.
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, it's not so good.
Mm-hmm.
It'll heal. I'll get back. It'll
It
be
will.
fine. And
It will.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So, do you have a specific? I know this is maybe a strange question based on what you just said, but a yoga philosophy? I've heard people talk about that before, and
About yoga philosophy.
yeah.
Yeah, so yoga philosophy, um yoga is based on like an ancient text that's about a couple of thousand years old,
Hmm.
and that's kind of like the basis of yoga. And it's that, I guess that's what yoga philosophy is.
Okay.
That's like the you know where yoga, I guess, um like I guess a description of what yoga is and how to practice yoga. And so in that text there are eight, what's called the eight limbs of yoga. And so it's just all the different aspects of
Hmm.
what yoga is. And so there are, I guess, ethical living principles that are part of that. Movement is another part of that. Breathing is another part. Meditation is another part. So that just kind of goes into, um, yeah, what describes, I guess, yoga. But like at the end of the day, yoga is described as like a process of, like self-actualization and self-understanding. So it's really all about cultivating self-awareness, about understanding yourself better, and um, I guess living in the best way that you can for yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that would be the goal. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Um, Something that you wrote, I take notes from the guest surveys that I give all of the guests,
Mm-hmm.
and I have this little box next to it that says our mission is parallel, because there's something you wrote about the things that you're passionate about. You said, most of all, I'm passionate about changing the way our society holds space for people who are struggling to change. I want to
Mm-hmm.
teach and empower as many people as possible to heal themselves, trust themselves, and know that experiencing the ups and downs of life is human and there's nothing wrong with them. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that although the wording might be slightly different, you and I have exactly the same goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give people the inspiration to know that they only need their own permission to forgive
Mm-hmm.
themselves, to heal themselves, to trust themselves, to create a life that brings them meaning and joy.
Yeah.
And it's up to them. No one else
Mm-hmm.
can do it for them. And
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
the same thing you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just doing it with a little, friendship, companionship. Someone's listening. And oh, by the way, let's do a little downward dog while we're there.
Yes.
I think that would be
Yeah.
great. So you
Yeah.
do this as a one-on-one and in small groups?
Mm-hmm.
How have you been
Yeah.
handling this through COVID? That must be a pain in the keister.
Yeah. Well, it kind of happened that through COVID, we were traveling. So my business was going to be on pause anyways. So that
Okay.
kind of worked out. Um,
Did you get stuck
But
someplace you didn't expect if you were traveling in the middle of a quarantine?
we were traveling within the US. We moved into a camper and just kind of drove around the country for 6 months.
Oh,
So
cool.
luckily we didn't really get stuck anywhere. I mean, there was definitely less things that we could do, but we were mostly like our intention was to go to as many national parks as we could.
Fun.
So yeah, it was amazing.
My husband would love that trip. He wanted to
Yeah.
retire, sell all our belongings except for a few things that we'd keep in storage, buy a big RV and just drive around the country.
hmm Yeah, it was amazing. So I mean, thankfully, like, all the national parks were open. It was more outdoors, and so there was no really much issues with that.
Sure. There probably weren't many
But
crowds anywhere. So
no, there really wasn't, which was
that's
great.
awesome.
Yeah. But since settling in Flagstaff, so we've been here for about 6 months, and so yeah, so I work with people one on one. I do some like small classes that are focused on yoga for emotional balance. I do some workshops online and in person. So yeah, that's the different ways in which I work with people.
Do you have specific types of clientele in mind, or just
Um,
pretty much open to anybody?
yeah, I don't really limit it to like specific people. I tend to work more with women, typically. I don't know if it's because yoga tends to attract more women than
Yeah, I
men.
think there've always been far more women in my yoga classes than
Yeah,
men, although there are
there is
always one or
still.
two.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but other than that, I mean, it really varies in terms of yeah, who I work with. Yeah.
What do you think of hot yoga? I tried this once. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like that was my first yoga class that I ever went to was a hot yoga class, and um, it was really hard.
Oh my God,
And
hot.
I don't know why I went back, but I did. It's not really the style that I practice today. Like I've kind of moved like for myself, it's more way more like gentle, more like nourishing and restorative style of yoga that I practice for myself. But I don't know. Some people really enjoy it, and it just helps. Like I guess the intensity of the practice um, can really help people like get out of their heads and into their body,
Well, that's
um,
true.
which can be really useful.
Yeah, I spend an inordinate amount of time in my head. And there
Yeah,
are times where I
I think we
feel
all
like a
do.
total disconnect between my head and my body, almost as if my brain uses my body as a car, that my
Mm,
body's only purpose is to transport my brain around.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's very hard to take care of my body. It's hard to respect my body. It's hard to have compassion for it, to feel sexy in it if I
hmm
feel like it's a vehicle, and
hmm
I have a
Yeah.
very hard time getting myself back into
Yeah.
into it.
Feeling. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true for a lot of people. And I think especially like in the society that we live in, we tend to have that disconnect because we always like thinking about, the next thing and thinking about what we need to do and um yeah, not I guess not taking care of cultivating that connection between body and mind.
Right.
Um
And there's so much about mental health that is absolutely like one to one connected with the body.
oh
Biology and
yeah,
mental health are integral
yes.
in one
hmm
another, and
Yeah.
what
Yep.
doesn't work about the body is the brain's vehicle thing is that if you don't take care of the vehicle, it's going to break down
Mm,
and then your
right.
brain goes away too.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I got to get better about that. I think that's going to be one of the big goals as soon as I get my ankle healed. And
Mm. Hmm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's also like part of this is that a lot of people don't feel safe in their bodies as well.
Hmm.
And so there's an inclination to like just want to avoid, feeling whatever is going on in the body. Um, because like even like when you look at emotions, and I think like our emotional health is a big part of our mental health.
Hmm.
And our emotions are experienced in our bodies. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
show up in different ways. I mean, we've all had that experience of like, tensing up when we stressed out, or like feeling fear or anxiety in our bodies. So like, it's definitely how it's going.
It's
And
always in my gut for me.
yeah. And so I think like if we're not used to experiencing like strong sensations in our bodies, or if we just don't feel comfortable experiencing those strong sensations in our bodies, then just not paying attention to it is a way to just not feel that. So I think that can be part of that too for a lot of people, just to not want to feel, I guess.
Well, they don't want to feel their feelings. I see that with a lot of people. They don't want to, for fear of what's going to
Mhm.
happen, I
Yeah.
suppose. They're afraid that it's going to be too overwhelming. They ignore
Hmm.
how they feel. I mean, feelings, the name meant to be
Hmm.
felt, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that they avoid it and hide it in the corner
Hmm.
until it becomes a biological, now it's affecting my body.
Right.
And it takes a while, I think, and an astute medical professional or healthcare professional or something
Hmm.
to help the person realize, no, it's not something wrong with your digestive system or whatever. It's
Right.
the fact that you're repressing or avoiding all of that
Yeah.
stuff with your mom, or the
Hmm.
unhappy
Yeah.
marriage, or whatever it
Whatever
is.
it is. Yeah.
Whatever it
Yeah.
is that's still bothering you, and when you
Mhm.
address that emotional thing and feel the feelings,
Yes.
then suddenly the skies part and the sun comes through and we realize that
Absolutely.
everything's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And like this, we store so much in our bodies, and um we have, I guess, that like muscle memory
Hmm.
of like experiences that we've been through in our lives. And um until it's something that we either like acknowledge or look at or release, then it just might be something that keeps, showing up in different ways. And I just remember like reading this about this like study that they did a while ago. I don't remember the details of it, but like essentially like they were looking at people who were coming to see a doctor for a specific reason, and then that cleared away. But then they came back with something different. And
Hmm.
so there was like, just different things showing up in different ways. But like until we are really addressing like the root of it,
Hmm.
your body's just going to keep, you know, trying to get your attention really.
Exactly. That's exactly what
um,
it's doing.
until it's you're addressing it. And so yeah, it's that I guess just comes back to that body mind connection, and just knowing that like we're not, it's not two separate things, it's just really one system made up of different systems that work together. And even when you look at, I read this really interesting book called Molecules of Emotions, and she talks about, I guess, the physiological effects of experiencing an emotion. And so
Sounds
there's like
very
that,
interesting.
yeah, it's really fascinating. So there is that link between the brain and the body, and so it goes both ways. And the brain is communicating with the body both through like, I guess, electrical signals, but also like chemical um, things that are being released in our bodies. And so like an obvious one is when we experience fear, then there's adrenaline, for
Sure.
example. So like, um, so that's like a physiological reaction that's happening like within our body.
Right. Get
And
out before the lion eats you. Right.
exactly. Yeah. And so, but what she was looking at is that, like, for every emotion, there's like another chemical that is being released and has and affects all of the systems in our bodies.
Hmm.
So the adrenaline, like it puts us in that fight or flight. So that is affecting our, like, shutting down our digestive system, just keeping like the essential functions. But you can see that, like, if we spend all of our time in that state, then our body is just not functioning
Right.
optimally. So um yeah, and like in the other way is also true that, like, when there's a change like in our body, then it's also affecting the way that we feel. It's affecting like how we think about things or think about
Sure.
ourselves. And yeah, so yeah.
And it's a big vicious cycle. If I'm stressed and anxious and it's upsetting my
Hmm.
stomach and I
Right.
can't eat well and I'm not sleeping well and I'm uncomfortable, then part of my
Yeah.
brain is always thinking about that. So I'm less
Yes.
focused on the tasks that I have to accomplish, or
Hmm.
I might be
Yes.
more snappish and short tempered with my husband or my kid,
Yeah.
and it all sort of, and then I feel bad about that. So that it adds to
Hmm.
the, so
It
yeah,
does. Yeah.
this is a
Yeah. And
big
so
vicious
I think
cycle.
that's where yoga for me has been really helpful, is that because there's a strong focus on just bringing awareness
Hmm.
to what you are doing. And to me, what that really does is that when you, and like the first few times, you might just notice, you might just like be, witnessing it happening without being really able to do anything. But
Well,
I
that's
think in
part of it.
time, yeah, that's part of it. And in time, like, the more you see it, the more you witness yourself doing something, like going through the motions, there's a point where, like, there's just this tiny little bit of space between, what is like triggering and like
Hmm.
the action that you take. And I feel like with yoga and with meditation, you're able to just, make that space
Right.
long enough so that you can choose something different if you want to. But then you're making the conscious choice, not just reacting.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're aware. Okay, so this
Hmm.
happens and this is how I typically respond, but that doesn't
Hmm.
work out well. And we always have a fight, or I always feel bad afterwards, or it causes a ripple effect of something else. But
Right.
if when that happens next time, I respond differently or don't respond at
Hmm.
all, which could be the right
Hmm.
answer, then I
Right.
can circumvent all of that other
Yeah.
fallout from that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. And obviously that can take, you know, it
a
might
long
be like
time. That's
just
not
a
easy.
one off, or yeah, exactly. Or it just might take longer if it's something that's been embedded, that's something that you've been doing for such a long time that it, it's not like an overnight thing to change it, right?
Right.
And yoga, so in yoga philosophy, they talk about um, samskaras. So samskaras are kind of like the equivalent of neural pathways in your brain.
Hmm.
And so the image that's with that is like, you kind of have this path that you've been doing over and over and over again. And the more you do it, the and so the translation of samskara is groove, which I really like. So groove meaning, like, the more you do something, the deeper
Sure.
the groove gets, right? And so the first time that you do something different and take a different pathway, then you're just making this like tiny little groove.
Right.
But the more you do it, the deeper it gets, and then the other one kind of starts
Fades.
to fade away. So, that's, I guess, this similar idea like in neuroscience, to when you think about neural pathways, and like,
Sure.
what you use more is easier, so the path of least resistance. And when you start to create a new path, then it just takes habit, I guess, and takes practice to actually make that path the easier one to take.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
worth absolutely every bit of energy to make a better choice and to take a better
Hmm.
path.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's intentionality and it's knowing what your goals are and it's knowing
Mhm.
what brings you peace and
Yeah.
who you specifically consciously want in your life, who
Mhm.
feeds healthily into that balance.
Mhm.
For me, as I was first embarking on a lot of this, when I was trying to figure out how to deal with the trauma of my mom, who was a
Mhm.
bipolar opiate drug addict, I realized that a lot of the choices that I was making for people were the same types of relationship dynamics that I kept replaying with her.
Mhm.
And I think what the universe was trying to prepare me for was to get a handle on those relationships and figure out what to do with them, because that would
Mhm.
be ultimately easier than figuring out eventually what I had to do with my mom. And it was all
Mhm.
meditation and mindfulness and some
Yeah.
yoga and therapy and, whatever
Yeah.
other meditative type things. With me, it's always like some sort of art and writing as well.
Mhm.
But some of it was in being intentional about my own responses, and some of it was eliminating people from my
Mhm.
world, from my inner sphere, who were just
Yeah.
disrupting everything in a negative way,
Mhm.
whose
Right.
every moment just was abrasive and
Yes.
awful. So, I
Yes.
mean, it's hard to do
Yeah.
that too. And a lot of people resist that because they
Mhm.
wonder what other people will think, or how can they do that? They
Yeah.
have a history, yada, yada, yada. There's a bazillion reasons, but
Mhm.
your own
Yeah.
sanity and health has to be paramount,
Has to be, yeah, the first thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like your clients are lucky to have you.
Thank you.
So, how do they find you? You have a website, yogawithanne-laure.com.
Mhm.
So they can
Yeah,
find you there. They
that's the
can
main
find you Yoga with
space.
Anne-Laure at Instagram and on Facebook. You've made it
Yep,
very easy. It's all the same name.
it is. Yes. Yes. And one thing to add is that I've started a Facebook group as well, that's called Yoga and Emotional Freedom.
Okay.
Um, and so I guess that's where I share most of my content. Um, I guess around all of the things that we just talked about.
How does somebody
How
become a
to
part of the group?
so if they look up the group Yoga and Emotional Freedom and request to join, and yeah, I'll add them in.
That's it. Okay.
That's it. It's easy.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Excellent.
Uh,
Excellent. So, do you have any last minute advice or something inspirational to tell our listeners? Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot.
um, I think all of what I teach really comes down to cultivating that trust in ourselves. And as I said before, like yoga is one way to do it, and that's the way I teach. But it's not to say that it's the only way. Um, but yeah, I think, recommitting to ourselves, cultivating that connection with ourselves, and yeah, trusting, like finding that safety in our body, accepting and embracing, all of who we are all of these things that goes into cultivating that self-trust. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Anne-Laure. This was just lovely. I wish that my ankle wasn't broken because I'm now in the mood to do yoga. I miss moving.
Yeah. Yes.
I miss moving.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here. This
Thank
was
you.
wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks to all of you who support this show on Patreon. You keep Permission to Heal up and running. If you want to become a valued patron, please go to www.patreon.com/permission to heal. That's www.patreon.com/permission to heal. After we pay expenses, 25% goes to scholarships at the Karen Treatment Centers to transform lives impacted by addiction. Your support is contributing directly to helping people and their families transform and heal from addiction. This is a cause very close to my heart, as my mother died of the effects of opiate addiction, and it tore my family to pieces. Thank you so much for supporting Permission to Heal and my mission to support others through their healing journey, through addiction, through Karen treatment centers. You are vital to our success. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Permission to Heal. I hope you found it moving and inspirational. Please remember, you don't need anyone else's permission to trust and follow your heart. You have the power within you. Subscribe to Permission to Heal so you don't miss any new episodes, and please share this with your friends.